Pimpna, nana, pimpna, nana. Does that ring any bell in your ear? Now, you knew that growing up in Ghana, whenever you heard such words, it meant that it was time to listen to some stories being told by our grandparents. For centuries, such stories told by the fireside were not only to entertain, but also to socialize the younger generation into the society through some educative storytelling. Today, filmmaking is the most common way that stories are being told in Ghana. We take a look at the local film industry, but before we dive into it, let's first take a journey down memory lane to understand how we arrived at this era of storytelling through filmmaking in Ghana. "100 years ago, film was introduced to the Gold Coast, now Ghana, by private individuals as they opened cinemas in urban areas. With the then colonial government realizing the power and influence of film on the local people, they began to sponsor and make films to brainwash and transform the African mentality. Later in the 1940s, they established the Gold Coast Film Unit. This unit was responsible for screening propaganda films about World War II, documentary films, newsreels, and government information films to the public. Such films by the Gold Coast Film Unit were all free to watch. As Ghana gained independence a decade later, the government of Ghana, led by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, inherited an industry where films were solely produced by the state. Dr. Nkrumah took advantage of this system and established the Ghana Film Industry Corporation, GFIC. His aim was to use this industry to reverse the doing of the colonizer by telling stories to restore the pride of being a Ghanaian and an African. GFIC was training Ghanaians to become professional filmmakers who were later employed by the state to produce films for socio-cultural development. By the end of the 1960s, over 150 indigenous films had been produced by the GFIC. After Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's overthrow, GFIC's production reduced drastically. This continued until the 1980s. By now, the appetite of the average Ghanaian for film had risen, and the growth of private filmmakers was good news to the film lover. In 1981, Kwawansa, who was trained by the GFIC, produced the first Ghanaian private independent film, Love Brewed in the African Port.
Coffee. Abba, I'm home.
Joe, you're great. Just great. Who wrote it?
Very great, isn't it?
I like the way he spells modern and fashion.
Yes.
Home of modern fashion. Cape Coast Dream.
This was followed by King Ampau's Kukurantumi Road to Accra movie in 1982. The huge successes and popularity of these independent films inspired a whole new generation of private filmmakers in Ghana the years that followed. This led to the commercialization of films through the sales of the video home system VHS tape cassettes. Private producers failed to cooperate with the GFIC, which by now had been sold off by the government to a Malaysian television company, today known as TV3 at Kanda, who had very little interest in making films. This is how Ghana's storytelling and filmmaking landed into the hands of the private individual, leading to the proliferation of producers and creating a very chaotic film industry in Ghana up until today. There's so many stories to tell, and so are there so many film producers dotted all across Ghana. But for the purpose of understanding the topic and the discussion, I have been speaking with key industry players who are writers, actors, and photographers about the current state of the Ghana film and creative arts industry, the challenges, and how Ghana's storytelling can attract a global audience. Mr. Stephen Adusei is a seasoned photographer who has documented a lot of social events in Ghana through photography. He grew up in the age where oral tradition of storytelling was widely practiced in every Ghanaian household and even on television. Today, it is very rare to find anyone listening to oral stories being told by the fireside.
Well, these days I believe nobody has time for listening to stories. And so the storytellers also got tired, I think. So they are not telling the stories. We are not so good at recording our history and telling our stories. So, for instance, things that we had on VHS, we haven't done so well by converting them into the current format that would be acceptable at the moment. So yes, we have some stories. Even the old ones that we are not telling now are stuck on the old formats.
With the film industry fully in the grasp of the private filmmaker in Ghana, regulation, supervision, and organization of the body of the movie industry is very difficult and somewhat non-existent. Basically, every producer does what he or she wants as long as funds are available. This current state has become problematic as the Ghanaian story is subjected to the instructions of the sponsors of the production. Actors Bless Fortune and Doji Ave, aka Who is Deji, highlights common challenges this industry faces.
Ella, you better start dressing because you're going to see my family today.
Dear life growing in the middle of me. You, I will soon hold.
The problem is that most of us are scared. Sometimes when you go for interviews and you want to say like, we don't say this, when you say this, those sideline, that is our problem. You pass them, but you stress them. We should use our voice, we should learn to speak the truth, learn to be our authentic self. Less careless who is going to support us or not. If we come together and we support each other, we can do magic. So I think let's use our voice. When you have the story out there, share it, shoot that film, share it. It doesn't matter who doesn't support you, share it.
I used to be of the view that like Ghanaians were not telling authentic stories and things like that. But then I have been corrected. I've met a number of amazing Ghanaian filmmakers. I've seen a number of amazing Ghanaian films. The main problem is access. How do we get these films to the big screen? How do we get them to streaming platforms? And with even getting them to streaming platforms, how does it work? Like, are the platforms buying and owning the content? There's like a bit of like cultural appropriation in these things, because if someone buys your film and then they are making it and then they are trying to follow the storyline, it's like foreigners profiting off your culture, that sort of thing. At the same time too, there are certain nuances, like people tend to impose certain ideas that aren't generically African on African media. Like there's a lot of fetishization going on. Like there's things that diaspora and white people want to see in African cinema, and then those things can be now forced on it. At the same time too, there's a whole issue of what are the systems in place to get things done. Like, do our creators have access to well-trained personnel? What training are people receiving? What equipment are they getting? How is casting done? There are issues of directors taking advantage of desperate young women who want to. It's not even just young women, young men too. Young people generally are being sexually abused and harassed before they are given platforms to be in movies.
The advantage of having filmmaking in the hands of the private Ghanaian is that the Ghanaian is able to control the narrative. The power of the media makes it necessary the filmmakers remain as authentic as possible, regardless of its repercussion. These actors believe that Ghanaian stories is one of the ways to decolonizing the Ghanaian mind.
We don't need the westernized to be powerful as Africans. Africa as a continent is brilliant. We're so much in resources. It's a sad that we don't have leaders that are supporting us. They only think about their stomach and their pocket. But if Africa wants to reach its full potential, trust me, the Western world can compete. That is why, till now, they are still enslaving us mentally. So to me, I don't know what answer the media will want from me. Maybe they want me to say, oh, okay, no. Let's sell our culture to them. Me being black, I'm proud. Me having my braids on. I can decide to cut my hair. That's the power I have as a black person.
The African narrative is one filled with wealth, beautiful culture and traditions, and the resilience of the African spirit. These are the stories that needs to be shown to the rest of the world. The challenge here is that there are no existing platforms dedicated to African stories with a global reach. A blueprint like that of Netflix can be learned from. Netflix today is a $44.5 billion US company that is into streaming and producing movies. With over 201 million subscribers worldwide, it is truly a global platform. With this huge platform available to the Ghanaian and African storyteller, the argument about the company's interest and presence in Africa always divides opinions.
I don't think I'm satisfied with how global streaming platforms operate, because I remember when Beyonce's, like as a consumer, when Beyonce's Black is King film came out, she worked extensively with a number of Africans and Ghanaians, and then there were shots, some of the scenes were shot here and all of that. And it was annoying because the movie was unavailable in Ghana on Disney Plus. And so it's like, even with access to content, you have a whole untapped market here of content consumers who wouldn't mind paying to get access to your content, but because that access is not there, they will just rather pirate it.
Yeah, so I think it starts from the scriptwriter and the producers, because if we always want to go with what the locals want, so if you act a movie about the future of Ghana or Africa and how it's supposed to be or how we want it to be, people might not buy it. But such a story might not be for the locals. We have products for local consumption, and then we should have product for foreign consumption. This that we're discussing is foreign consumption, so we need to have more of that. The writers and the producers should look into that, and governments should also sponsor movies like that, because I believe it helps. It's money that's making this thing not go the way we expect it to go.
Africa is the world's future economic hub and an even greater powerhouse should the African diaspora invest in the continent's emerging industries like that of filmmaking. It would rather be to the continent's advantage if global giants like Netflix and HBO partners with local companies to build studios to advance filming on the continent. This suggestion would cater for the lack of existing infrastructure such as data storage centers and advanced production equipment. It is important that the Ghanaian and African story remains as original as it can be in order to show who we are to the rest of the world. Rebuilding the Ghanaian film industry is crucial to projecting the African image that will not only tell the authentic African stories on a global platform, but also offer indigenous talents and creatives a career worth exploring. Reporting for the Kente Business Journal, my name is Joseph Amwakwanta. Please do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel Kente Business Journal TV and press the notification bell to stay updated always.